Ina manages to compose herself. She gets up despite the burning pain on her cheek. It has been a while since she received that kind of slap. She was really caught off guard. She quickly tries to make sense of her situation. This could not be happening. Not here of all places. "Aunt, what are you doing here?" she asks, misphrasing her words, which only angers her aunt even more. "Are you seriously asking me that? Should I give you another slap to reset your brain? You must really be forgetting who I am." And Joko reprimands. "Aunt, please, we can talk somewhere else later. I'm still working right now, and my boss will not be happy to see you here," Ina pleads. "Oh, so you're working. You have a job, yet you haven't paid me my money for this month? Do you have any idea what today's date is?" Joko shouts. Ina has been so occupied lately that she forgot she owes her aunt and needs to pay an allocated amount every single month. She has been doing this on time for months because she knows her aunt desperately seeks any opportunity to attack her. This is the first time she has missed the payment, and for obvious reasons. She doesn't have any money to give her. Sure, she is working here, but she isn't getting paid. How in the world could she forget this? And how will she pacify her aunt now? There is no way this crazy woman will leave without getting her desired result. Ina knows that much. But how did her aunt find her? And why here? "Aunt, I'm afraid I don't have any money right now, but I'll figure out a way to pay you. Please, I'll call you later. This is not the right place or time. I'm begging you," she pleads. "Ina, I am here for my money, and I'm not leaving without it. Get that through your thick skull," and Joko affirms. "But aunt, I've always paid you on time, before the month even ends. Today is just the second day of the new month. Please, give me some time," Ina explains, even though she has absolutely no idea where she'll get the money. At this point, she is just saying anything to get her aunt to leave. This is Kodra's house, for goodness sake. Her aunt, of course, doesn't care about this. In fact, if it were up to her, she would create so much drama for Ina and hope as many people as possible watch her humiliation. "So, you're starting to excuse the fact that you haven't paid me? Listen, you thief, I heard you stole from the company at your old job. That's why you got fired. I have always known you are an ungrateful person. All I want is my money. We had an agreement. You pay me monthly until you pay back every single thing you owe me, plus the interest. If I don't get my money right now, I'll call the police and have you arrested. Prison is the rightful place for thieves like you anyway." Ina wondered how her aunt found out about that crime that her friends framed her for. To the best of her knowledge, the company hasn't released that information to the public for some weird reason. The only drama online so far is that of her reprimanding Codra. This is part of the reason why a good percentage of the public still supports her over Codra. They do not know she is being accused of stealing from the company. How does her aunt know? Just as she was trying to piece it all together, she gets her answer when she sees her old friends getting out of her aunt's car. They have their usual mischievous mug looks. This is the last thing she needs. The two parties who happen to loathe her have met. This is not good, as if they haven't caused her enough harm individually. Imagine what they can do all together. Having all of them here, What if they meet up with Kodra and manipulate him against her even more now that her aunt had joined the group? Ina believed her old friends have most likely met up with Kodra. They all work at Holker Enterprises. And they are former friends of the girl who insulted him, so they most likely interact. But her aunt has most definitely not met him, and goodness knows she better not, because Aunt Joko never has anything nice to say about her. They need to leave immediately. They can't stay here any longer. She had left Kodra having lunch inside, and if she doesn't rush back to stand next to him like a statue soon, he won't be pleased and might get suspicious. Aunt, please, you need to leave right now. I'll send your money as soon as possible, but you need to go, Ina urges anxiously. She immediately receives another hard slap as an answer. She doesn't mind though. This time she expected it. She just wants her aunt to take her new companions and leave immediately. She knows all too well that evading her aunt would only escalate the matter. Aunt, I understand why you're angry, but this is not the right place. Please, you need to leave, Ina pleads again, only to receive another hit. This foolish girl, what even gives you the audacity to chase me? Seems like you've really forgotten all your home training. Why are you so dead set on sending me off? Is this your house? Joko backs, making another move to slap her again. Ina closes her eyes, bracing for the hit, but a few seconds pass and it didn't land. She doesn't even hear her aunt screeching anymore. She slowly opens her eyes and sees Joko looking mellowed and calm. Even Lillian and Jane, who had been enjoying her dilemma, now looked composed. She notices they were looking towards her, but just not at her. Before she could turn around to see for herself, she hears a thick voice right behind her, way too close. This is not her house. It is my house, and she is my employee. So if you could explain to me why you are attacking my employee at my house, Codra says. His voice is subtle, yet carrying so much authority. Ina freezes, her heart pounding heavily. Why in the world is all this happening to her? And Joko gulped hard and changed her whole demeanor, putting on a cheery smile. Mr. Holker, it's you. I'm so happy to meet you. She cheers. I actually came here to talk to you. I didn't know I'd find my niece here, but that is a good thing, since I really wanted to teach her a lesson, she adds, getting all serious as she stares at Ina. I heard about what she did to you and your company. I really tried my best to raise her right. I don't know how she turned out like this. Joko complains with an exasperated expression, like a disappointed mother. But you have nothing to worry about, Mr. Holker. I will teach her a lesson. It seems like she has lost her manners, and I'm ready to remind her, she asserts confidently. Ina is not surprised. Her aunt never misses an opportunity to talk down on her. This is exactly what happened throughout her childhood. Whenever they met someone new, her aunt would find an excuse to belittle her right from the start. This is exactly what Ina was trying to avoid. Now Codra is being offered even more reasons to loathe her, and this is the last thing she needs right now. Who are you? Kodra asks seriously, and Joko quickly rushes to introduce herself, claiming she is Ina's aunt and raised her all on her own. She was about to go on and on about how difficult it was, especially since Ina is such an unruly person, but Kodra cuts her off. "So, you said you're here to speak to me, right?" Kodra asks. Joko did come here with the intention of speaking to Kodra. She didn't believe it would be this easy. She had planned to ask him of Ina's whereabouts and maybe throw some shade at her, knowing he most likely despises Ina for all she has done to him. Finding Ina here was unexpected, but it actually fulfills the first part of her purpose. Now she has a chance to get in Mr. Holker's good books while dragging Ina down even further. There is no way she will miss out on such an opportunity. "Yes, Mr. Holker, I would love to speak to you," she replies, trying her best to conceal her joy. Ina, on the other hand, is shell-shocked. This cannot be happening. Why does her aunt want to speak to Codra? The only thing they have in common right now is their shared disdain for her. She can clearly imagine what kind of conversation her aunt wants to have with him, and it is not in her favor. She needs to stop this, but how? Her only hope is that Codra rejects this idea, and if he agrees, he sets a day and time far off enough to give her a chance to pacify her aunt somehow. "Go inside, walk upstairs, and stay there unless I ask you to calm down," Kodra orders. It takes Ina a moment to realize that that command is directed at her. Why in the world would she leave her aunt, Lillian, and Jane alone with Codra? This combination of people is a guaranteed disaster for her. Lillian and Jane have been quiet until now, but she knows they mean no good. She tries her best to speak up in order to stop this. She needs to hear what they have to say, no matter how torturous it is. Turning to address Kodra, she stutters. "Sir, she's my aunt. We just have a little disagreement. Please give me a little time to resolve it." And Joko, unwilling to let Ina ruin her chance of meeting and familiarizing herself with an affluent man like Kodra, shouts loudly. She tells Ina to shut up, declaring there's nothing to resolve between them, since Ina lacks the solutions she seeks. Ina realized her aunt's interests have shifted. She now wants to speak to Kodra and has made it very clear. "I said get inside," Kodra orders again, his tone more serious this time. Defeated, Ina walks towards the mansion. She steps inside and heads upstairs as instructed. Now, for how things got to this point, it all started this morning, and Joko drove to Ina's previous apartment in the school district to search for her. Joko knows this location because she had dropped by a few times in the past. She was also the one paying the rent of this place during Ina's study course. Things were much better then, but that doesn't mean that life was fine before. Ina's father passed away before she was born. She only ever had her mother, but unfortunately, she also died shortly after. Ina was only 3 years old when this happened, and Joko became her guardian, and that's when her years of misery began. Joko has children of her own, and they were understandably favored over Ina. The mistreatment that came with it was immense. Her aunt and uncle own a very large commercial building in a prime location in the city. That is the only thing they have going for them. They do not have any jobs, but this commercial property is more than enough. It sustains the whole family allowing them to live in luxury. Many of the rooms are rented out, but the family operates a large supermarket in the building. The business does exceedingly well, generating significant profits, and the place is always busy. Aunt Joko and her husband are both illiterate, and their reliable source of income has made them lazy. Neither of them has ever tried to learn the ropes of the business, and their children show no interest in it. Due to her irritable nature and ignorance, Aunt Joko struggles to connect with the staff, and she frequently has disagreements with them, especially with the managers she hires. Most of them quit after a short time. Ina managed to finish her secondary education in a free public school, unlike her cousins who attended prestigious international schools. She was proud to make it that far. It hadn't been an easy journey at all. Her next goal was to earn a degree for herself, but she knew Aunt Joko wouldn't agree to pay. Her primary education and secondary education were free in public schools, but even still, it wasn't easy to convince Aunt Joko to agree for her to study. Now imagine the university that costs thousands and thousands. She knew Aunt Joko wouldn't agree to pay her, and Ina had no means of affording it herself. As she waited at home, hoping for a miracle, her aunt surprised her by suggesting she works at the supermarket. This suggestion came as a shock to Ina because her aunt has never allowed her to even set foot in the commercial building. It has always been a strict rule that she had to follow. Ina agreed, not that she had much of a choice. It was more of an order than a suggestion. She hoped to save money while working at the supermarket, so she threw herself into learning everything about how it operates. She got along well with all the workers and quickly learned everything there was to know. Managing the business wasn't difficult. Even an illiterate person could grasp it. However, her aunt and uncle preferred to lazy about, spending their time collecting money effortlessly. When Aunt Joko saw how skilled Ina had become at running the supermarket, a plan began to form in her mind. She wanted to keep Ina under her control for as long as possible. Ina was the perfect fit for managing the business. She won't get paid. She is trustworthy because of her innocent nature, and she is entirely under Aunt Joko's control. For Aunt Joko, it was a perfect win-win situation. She and her husband could finally relax, knowing that someone reliable was managing their income. When Ina discovered that she wouldn't be paid for her services, she was utterly disheartened. There is no way she could spend the rest of her life as a slave to her aunts and her family. She had already spent her entire life serving them in exchange for a roof over her head and some food. But this couldn't be the only life she knows. Determined to find a way out, Ina decided to apply for scholarships. It was her only chance of breaking free. Ina had performed exceptionally well in her final exams. As a student from a public school, this was a significant achievement. She was able to land a full scholarship abroad. Unfortunately, her cousin discovered the news before Ina did. She told her mother everything, and there is no way Aunt Joko would allow Ina to benefit from such an opportunity. Knowing Ina would find out about the scholarship eventually, especially since her former school was bound to contact her about it, and Joko devised a plan. She offered Ina a deal. She would pay for her university tuition and other expenses as a loan. Once Ina completes her education and secures a job, she would start paying her back in small, reasonable monthly installments. She even drafted an agreement. She sounded so honest, and Ina had a really hard time making sense of the sudden change in her. Aunt Joko agreed to take her to a university of her choice within the country. That was the very first time in her life that her aunt was being nice. She thought it was all a joke, but Aunt Joko rushed everything up. Before she knew it, she was registered at the university, and her aunt rented a very decent apartment at the school district for her, buying everything she will need to sustain herself and more. By the time Ina found out about being accepted for a full scholarship abroad, she was way too in and didn't want to throw the very first good thing her aunt had ever done for her at her face. She didn't understand why her aunt did all this, but she was still grateful, even though she had to pay back. All through Ina's studies, and Joko made sure to give her a lot of things, way more than she needs. That's why she was comfortable enough to allow Lillian to move in with her. What Ina didn't know is that Aunt Joko just wanted to increase her debt, make it as high as possible so that it will take Ina even longer to pay back. So immediately after her graduation, Aunt Joko came to remind her of her debt. She threw in an offer that caused she and Ina to have a very serious fallout. She asked Ina to work at the supermarket and manage the entire commercial house until she pays off her debt. Considering the small amount she offered to pay Ina, that would take years. Ina wasn't about to slave for her aunt again. She outrightly refused. That is how she finally found out her aunt's ulterior motives and why she had been so oddly nice. Her aunt ordered her to pay back every single dime she owes her fully, or she threatened to have her arrested. But Ina reminded her of the agreement they signed. It was a simple write-up, but it was plausible enough. Aunt Joko had offered this document in order to convince Ina years back that she was honest. She just had someone type it. She didn't even read it or care to get rid of it. Ina kept it safely though. She kept the original copy, and that saved her. Instead of having to pay her aunt at once, which was impossible, they'd have to follow the original agreement, where she pays her off in installments monthly. Luckily, she got that job at the Holker Enterprises, and she had been paying her aunt every single month. But this time, she couldn't because she just can't, and her aunt came rushing to remind her of that. This is the first time she had seen her ever since they had that fallout. Aunt Joko could easily have called Ina to ask for her money, but that would only be an easy way out for Ina. She wasn't going to have that. She had been desperately looking for an opportunity like this. When she didn't find Ina at the old apartment, she started asking around. Lillian and Jane managed to find out about this since they were still in the same neighborhood. Lillian remembered Ina having a fallout with her aunt. It wasn't long before she found out that Ina's aunt really hates her. Joko explained everything to Lillian and Jane, who in turn explained the recent events to her. But they didn't have an answer for the whereabouts of Ina. In fact, no one knows where Ina is. She obviously hadn't been arrested, since there are no reports of that. No one at the company knows where Ina is. The last thing they know is that the CEO, Mr. Holker, had vowed to deal with her personally after he comes back from his trip. He has been around for a month now, yet nothing has happened. Nothing they know of, at least, and that was making them uneasy. They asked around, but all in vain, just in case Mr. Holker in some crazy way is trying to downplay this, or Ina managed to talk herself out of it. Lillian believes she needs to personally add more fire to the matter, and Anjoko being here, she sees a great opportunity. So she tells Anjoko that there is only one person who might know where Ina is. They convince her that the man Ina offended most definitely knows where she is, and only he has the answers. They offer to accompany Joko to the northern estates. They obviously know where Kodra lives. Every employee, especially the females, know his address. Not because they've been invited before. They just happen to know where the CEO's mansion is. Joko agrees willingly. Meeting people of power is something she always looks forward to. Once they arrive at the gate, she hoots out of habit before realizing whose gate she is at. She gets out of the car to go respectfully knock on the gate. Just then, a maid walks out, and to her surprise, it is the person she had been looking for since morning. She gives her a very hard slap just because she can. It had always been really satisfying to slap Ina, and it has been a while. Ina is upstairs, completely anxious and unsettled. All the three parties who loathe her are downstairs, conversing together. She had seen Codra walk her aunt Lillian and Jane in. Her heart rates were beyond normal, and her brain just keeps imagining what they could possibly be discussing. She so badly wants to go downstairs and listen to all the stories they are forming against her, just to be aware of what to expect as a result. But she isn't about to disobey Codra's order right now. He is most definitely going to hate her more because of the things he'll be made to believe about her. All she can do is wait. On the other hand, the ladies were so happy. Mr. Holker has actually invited them into his house. This is a big deal, a very big one. Lillian and Jane were already imagining how they would brag about this at the office. Mr. Holker, thank you so much for agreeing to listen to me. And Joko speaks. I'm so sorry about Ina. I saw what she did to you. That girl is really something. How dare she bite the hand that feeds her? To think she had a job thanks to you. Yet she said all those awful things to you. She probes. But I'm not surprised. That's exactly what she did to me. I raised that girl, gave her the best of everything, treated her like my own daughter. All for what? She turned her back against me the very moment she was done using me. She complains. Kodra quietly observes her until he asks her a question. Does your own daughter also have to pay you back for the money you spent on her college education? He asks seriously, and Nanjoko is left completely speechless. All her words die down her throat. How much does she owe you? A complete total. Kodra asks again, and Joko doesn't even know what to say. Why does it seem like she's been portrayed as the villain? How come it seems like Mr. Holker is defending Ina? Does he want to pay her debt? Joko doesn't want to offend Kodra at all, but she knows he's a very wealthy man. Given the chance to get money out of him, she most definitely won't turn down the offer. She's a very greedy woman, and free money is something she'll always run for, no matter how she gets it. She has no idea how much Ina owes her in total. She never calculated it. She had just planned to keep Ina working for her for as long as possible. Now, given the chance, why not claim as much money as she can? The amount Aunt Joko shamelessly mentioned left Lillian and Jane completely shocked to their bones. Even more troubling is how Kodra asks for her account number and makes a phone call to have the money transferred immediately without even asking any questions. Aunt Joko couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the amount transferred into her account. The millions satisfied her greed to levels unimaginable. All this money? For me? My goodness, you're too generous, Mr. Holker. She cheers. But then she realizes there is more to where this came from. Much more. And right now, it seemed like this wealthy man is ready to do anything for Ina. Ina can't be this lucky. No way. I'm very happy, but I don't understand why you would do all this to save that ungrateful girl. She is not trustworthy. You need to kick her out of your house immediately. If she can steal from your company, she most definitely will do the same to your house. Send her off. She should be in jail. Have her arrested, she urges adamantly. Woman, you have your money. You can leave now. I don't want to see you around my property again. Don't you ever molest my employee or even think of it. Otherwise, it is you I will have arrested. Kodra warns, and Aunt Joko is completely freaked out by how serious he sounds. It seems like her suspicions were right. Mr. Holker has a soft spot for her niece. This is horrible. She wants Ina to be miserable. How is that supposed to happen if a billionaire of this caliber likes her? Sir, can't you see that she's taking advantage of your kindness? She abused you, and now she's here at your house, pretending to make up for everything? This whole thing is a disguise. She wants to seduce you. Why else would she agree to be your maid, if not to get into your bed? She is a very foolish person. Believe me, she urges. Oh, I do believe you. She is indeed foolish. Why else would she allow herself to be treated as a slave her whole life in her own father's house? A house managed with money earned from her own father's commercial house and business, where she also worked for free, just to start paying you back for money that all belongs to her to begin with. A very foolish girl indeed, am I right? He retorts, and Aunt Joko almost faints. How in the world does Mr. Holker have this information? How does he know about a secret she made sure to bury so deep? Does this mean Ina knows as well? It can't be possible, right? Why did Mr. Holker pay her this hefty amount despite knowing this fact? She wasn't going to stick around to find out. She frantically dashes out of there without looking back. Lillian and Jane were similarly shocked. They had come here with motives of tarnishing Ina's image and finding out where she is. They've been very quiet all through, just silently observing and listening. They have had stories about Kodra. He is not someone they can mess with. So they had left all the dirty work to Aunt Joko, but it seems like even she couldn't handle Mr. Holker. They had really thought that working at the headquarters would give them a chance to associate with him. They had helped the company expose Ina, someone who insulted him. They hoped for some kind of acknowledgement, but that never happened. So this was their chance. Seeing Ina dressed as a maid earlier was really satisfying. But now, observing how Mr. Holker seemed to be very possessive of her, they saw red flags. This didn't seem to be right. But after hearing what he revealed that made Aunt Joko run off, they tried to reason that maybe he just feels sorry for Ina, since she had been used by her aunt. But even that didn't sit right with them. They might have come here with Aunt Joko, but they aren't ready to leave yet. She had achieved her purpose of coming here, but they haven't, so they awkwardly remained seated. Ina, still upstairs, sees her aunt rushing out of the mansion gates to her car parked outside and driving off as though she was being chased by some savage animal. That is really weird. She hoped to see Lillian and Jane leaving as well, but they remained inside for some reason. Why aren't they living with her aunt? Didn't they come together? She wondered. Still in the living area, Lillian and Jane managed to introduce themselves to Codra, who looks very uninterested. We both work at the headquarters, and we're old friends of Ina's as well. We're actually the ones who informed the company about her fraudulent schemes. And as a result, we got good jobs at the headquarters. We just wanted to thank you personally, sir, Lillian explains. Kodra's response comes quickly. I'm afraid you're thanking the wrong person. I did not authorize your recruitment, nor did I have any idea that my company now employs people to pay for favors instead of professionalism. Lillian is completely muted after hearing this. That is a hard blow. So Kodra doesn't even know about her? Jane tries to offer a more detailed explanation. Sir, actually, we both did our internships at the company in the Western branch. I was able to land a job, but Lillian didn't because the company was fully staffed. They still knew about her professionalism. So once there was an opening, she was included. And we managed to be transferred to the headquarters because the human resource knows how good we are personally, she explains. Kodra didn't say anything in response to that. He addresses something else. Your friend must be waiting for you both outside. You can join her, he says, indirectly kicking them out. But Jane quickly denies it, saying they have no ties with her. We had been friends with Ina for years, but we had never met her aunt. We didn't know their relationship was strained. We were just worried about Ina. It really pained us to report her to the company, but we had to do the right thing. Justice must prevail, she declares. You are right. Justice must prevail. That is why, in due time, I will make sure the culprits are brought to justice. Kodra agrees with a deadly glint in his eyes. Jane doesn't catch on, but Lillian does. She wonders what exactly is going on here. Is Ina really even a maid? If so, why? Why isn't she in jail? What kind of justice is he talking about? Being a maid in this house doesn't seem like a proper punishment at all. If she's a maid, she might as well do her job, right? She clears her throat and speaks up. Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry to bother you, but could I please have some water? I have a really dry throat, she requests, hoping Mr. Holker will ask Ina to calm down and serve her. Of course, but I'm afraid you'll need to go to your own house for that. I'm sure you know your way out, he says directly, sending them off. That was really embarrassing. Way too direct. They get up and leave. Once they get back to the apartment, Jane is in a rather cheery mood. You'd think they weren't kicked out just a while back. My goodness, Lillian, he is so much more handsome up close. His voice, his demeanor, dream man for sure, she gushes. Lillian, who had felt completely attacked by Kodra, was in a very bad mood. It felt like Kodra had a personal agenda against her. Well, your dream man seemed to be really close to Ina. You were so taken up by admiring him that you seem to have missed the fact that he was defending Ina all through, she points out. Oh, come on. He just felt sorry for her. He most likely saw her aunt slapping her outside. That's all. He's such a kind man, such a sweetheart, she says dreamily. Well, right now, that sweetness is not for you. And why is Ina in his house? Why isn't she in jail? Can't you see that something sinister is going on here? Lillian shouts. Come on, Lillian. It's not that big of a deal. Didn't you see? She is a maid, a mere maid. Cool down. Jane responds. I did see that. You know what else I saw? Only the two of them. There was no one else in that large house. What do you think happens between them? That is Ina, for goodness sake. And I know Ina very well. There is something about her that draws people in. Now she's there, cooking for him, playing housewife and all. What do you think will happen? It pains me to say this, but she is a really good cook, and we all know that. She's very hardworking and really good looking as well. What if she earns his trust? Or worse still, he falls for her? That is if he hasn't already. She reasons. That is impossible. She insulted him. He hates her. Jane denies. Oh, but this does not sound like he hates her. Why would he pay her debt? And how come he knows so much about Ina's family history? It really seems like he likes her, Gloria says fearfully. No way. That is impossible, Jane denies. It is very possible. What happens when Derek comes back and finds out that her brother and good friend are living together? This was not the plan. Mr. Holker is supposed to hate Ina and wants nothing to do with her. Derek is supposed to share that hate because Ina insulted her brother. Ina is supposed to be poor and helpless. Now she has Mr. Holker's backing, and apparently everything her rich aunt owns belongs to her. This is not going according to plan, Gloria complains. She is really scared. Gloria, compose yourself. This is not our main issue right now. Ina is slowly gaining Mr. Holker's trust. Every second she spends in that house is dangerous for us, because the first thing she'll do once she gains his trust is spill the whole truth. What happens to us then? We need to think of something, and fast, Lillian urges. Once Ina saw Lillian and Jane leaving, she impatiently waited for Codra to call her. Once she hears him calling, she goes down to meet him, still unsure of what awaits her. Codra is seated bossily, his face giving off nothing. Ina just stands idly and waits for him to speak. That's the only way she'll know what he's up to. Codra takes his sweet time before speaking. I have already cleared your entire debt. You no longer owe your aunt anything, but you now owe me everything and more. So since your debt has increased, your ways of paying it back have been adjusted. From now onwards, you will be a live-in worker, he informs. It takes Ina a while to process the information. He cleared her debt? Why would he do that? She never asked him to. Not that she's complaining. Kodra may be a hard man to deal with, but her aunt is even worse. At least this is a tone down on the physical abuse he receives from her aunt. Yet she still isn't pleased that he got involved in her private life without informing her. Her issue with her aunt has nothing to do with him. But then again, the payback method doesn't sound bad at all. A live-in worker? I get to spend the night here? She asks. Why? Do you have a problem with that? You didn't seem to mind sleeping in my gatehouse, so I don't see how this is a problem. He accuses and Ina gulps, feeling guilty. It seemed like she hadn't been as sneaky and smart as she thought. This is really embarrassing. She had been discovered. So Codra knew she was sleeping at the gatehouse. That night, she tried to go back to the gatehouse since she had spent so many nights there anyways, and it was really comfortable. But Kodra asked her to pick a bedroom of her choice in the mansion. So she picks one. It's really weird, but living with Kodra under the same roof didn't seem as dreadful as she had imagined. Since she will be staying here more formally now, she'll need to get a few of her things here. Her new rules involve not leaving this house without permission. She decides to have Tale bring a few of her things over instead of begging Kodra for permission to leave. This is a much easier option. She calls Sama to ask for her help in packing a few things, and Tale will transport them. The very next morning, Tale brings everything for her. Ina can't go further out, so Tale drove right to the gate. Ina rushes out to meet him, really happy to see him. It had been a while since they met. They exchanged pleasantries for some time before parting ways. Ina carries her bag inside, only to come face to face with a very angry Codra. First, your aunt, and your friends, now your boyfriend. Are you trying to turn my house into a family reunion spot? Ina's joy is short-lived as always. I'm sorry, sir. She apologizes. This better be the very last time someone comes to look for you here at my house. Don't you dare try me again, he warns. The weekend goes by, and surprisingly, Kodra doesn't give Ina much trouble. On Monday, he goes off to the office like usual. Kodra is completely unsettled at the office. He couldn't concentrate no matter how much he tried, and he had barely been in for an hour. Ina was catching up with her usual duties when she got a call from an unfamiliar number. Hello? She says after answering, but she's met with silence. Hello? She repeats, but there is still no response. She's about to end the call thinking it's just a wrong number when she hears a voice she knows all too well. Pack my lunch and bring it to the office. Kodra's voice rings through, carrying his usual commanding tone, and obviously he's dishing out another order. Ina is caught off guard. This is the first time he has ever called her directly. Previously, all communication from him had been delivered by Patrick. Dave will come pick you up later, Kodra adds. Ina doesn't fully understand his instruction. Okay, sir. So should I give the food to Dave? She asks, confused. Why would Dave come to pick her up if he could just take the lunch himself? A while back, she wouldn't have had the courage to ask such questions, but she has kind of eased up around Kodra. On the other hand, Kodra realizes how ridiculous his request sounds. Why would Dave pick her up when he could simply bring the food? It makes no sense. Besides, food isn't really what he's after. He no doubt enjoys Ina's cooking, but right now, it's the cook he wants to see. No, that is impossible. Dave is horribly sick. He's bedridden and won't be on duty until further notice, Codra explains, leaving Ina confused again. Wasn't he the one who said Dave would pick her up? And why is he explaining himself to her anyway? That's odd. So, you have to bring my lunch here personally. Take a taxi or something, he adds. Ina remains silent. She doesn't have extra money to spend on taxi. If she uses the little she has, it will leave her completely penniless. Kodra suddenly recalls her taxi friend, the boy he had seen her with weeks ago, and just the day before at his own gate. No, do not take a taxi. Go to the bus stop near the estate and board a bus. Do you understand? No taxi, he emphasizes. Ina doesn't understand why he's acting so strangely. Does he know she doesn't have money for taxi? Yes, sir, she responds dutifully. Meanwhile, a perfectly healthy Dave who is standing in Codra's office looks flabbergasted at Codra's blatant lie regarding him, right in front of him. But Codra doesn't care at all. In fact, he doesn't even acknowledge Dave's presence after ending the call. Sir, you asked for me, Dave finally says after being ignored. Leave. I do not want to see your face for the next 2 weeks. In fact, you can only come here or around my mansion unless I ask you to, Codra orders. Codra had initially called Dave because he wanted to tell him to go pick Ina up and bring her to the office later. But since the plans have now changed, Dave needs to disappear. Dave tries hard to hold in his laughter. His boss is acting really strange and it is comical. At least he gets 2 weeks off out of it. So, good for him. After all, he hasn't been getting enough sleep lately with all those late nights of having to fake following Ina around. Ina is thrown off by Kodra's request. She doesn't know what to do. No one had ever mentioned that this would be part of her duties, especially the fact that she would have to personally deliver the lunch. Ina doesn't like this at all. The last time she went to that office wasn't a good experience, and worse, her old friends now work there. She doesn't want to go there at all, but it's not like she was given a choice. Ina calls the previous chef to ask for pointers, but the chef explains that she had never had to pack or deliver lunch for Kodra. There is a 5-star restaurant in the city that handles his lunch. She herself didn't understand the odd request. Ina is left to figure it out all on her own. In all her days of staying here, Kodra had never complained about her cooking. Trusting her instincts, she prepares a few dishes, carefully packs them, and gets ready. At noon, she heads out. She boards a bus to the city center just like Kodra had oddly insisted, and gets off at the nearest bus stop to the Holka headquarters. Standing in the lobby, memories of her helplessness the last time she came here flashed back. For a moment, she felt powerless, but quickly composed herself. Her eyes land on the same rude receptionist she encountered last time. This time, she isn't alone. Ina doesn't want to approach them, but she has no choice. There is no way she can go up to Kodra's office without someone informing him first. Last time, Patrick had saved her. Goodness knows how she'll manage this time. Good afternoon, she greets, but they seem oblivious to her presence. Oh, it's you again. What do you want? One of them asked in a bored tone. I'd like to meet Patrick, Mr. Holker's PA. He's expecting me. Ina answers politely. Oh, really? He didn't tell me anyone would drop by. The receptionist responds and then stands idly, ignoring her. Could you please inform him for me? Ina asks politely. Kodra had communicated with her directly today. Besides, she knows her way around here. She doesn't need Patrick to rescue her. Or so she thought. She decides not to mention Kodra's name, as that might irritate the receptionist's father. They might not even believe her, but it seemed like using Patrick's name wasn't working at all. You don't tell me how to do my job, the receptionist snaps. You couldn't even keep yours, remember? What are you even doing here? Are you trying to beg for your job back? You really think that will work? She glares at her. It's already lunch break, which means I'm off duty now. You can speak to my colleague here, who is taking over, she adds, gesturing to the other receptionist. Nope, you're not off duty yet. About 5 minutes to go. So you deal with her. The second receptionist denies immediately. Whatever, the first one says dismissively. Madam, find a place to sit down. Maybe she'll help you after the 5 minutes elapse. As for me, I will not waste my time with you. Ina felt so humiliated. This is exactly why she didn't want to set foot here. To everyone in this building, she is just some ungrateful brat. Just as she was about to excuse herself, she hears giggles from behind. My, if it isn't my old friend, a voice says, and Ina knows exactly who it is. The very last person she wants to see, Lillian. Alongside her are Jane and Gloria. It's no surprise to see Gloria. Derek must have helped to secure a spot for her. They are cosmates and friends after all. What are you doing here? Lillian asks scornfully. Look, I think she's here to deliver food. First a maid, now a delivery girl, Jane mocks, pointing at the bag Ina is holding. Everyone laughs. It's lunch break, and many employees are in the lobby, probably heading out for lunch. Guys, this is my friend, Ina Aneska. I'm sure we've all seen the video of her insulting the boss, but I know Ina so well. She is such a kind soul, and I strongly believe there was a misconception. Ina, would you like to explain it to us? Lillian announces loudly, making sure everyone in the lobby hears her. Oh, yes. While you're at it, you can tell us why you're here. Do you want to insult our boss again? Or maybe seduce him? Which we all know won't work? Jane adds, mockingly, and everyone laughs. Ina stays quiet. Anything she says will only fuel this situation. She decides to wait it out, hoping they leave her alone soon enough. Why is there a gathering in my lobby that I do not know of? A commanding voice rings out, silencing everyone. It is Miss Claudia, and she looks really serious. Ina didn't know what to do. She considers going to sit in the waiting area as the receptionist had instructed, but Claudia quickly approaches her. Claudia's demeanor changes drastically. She is smiling brightly at Ina, and her authoritative presence seconds ago is nowhere to be seen. This catches Ina off guard. She might not have known Kodra when she first met him, but she knows Claudia. She had visited the Western Holker branch several times before, so she is familiar with her. You must be Miss Aneska. I have been sent specifically to come and get you. Claudia beams. You are really beautiful. Prettier than I had imagined. She compliments. Ina doesn't know how to respond. Why is Miss Claudia, of all people, being so nice and complimentary? It feels odd. Ina doesn't believe she has done anything deserving of praise. Quite the contrary. Everyone in the lobby was utterly shocked as they watched the scene unfold. Miss Claudia is second in command to the CEO. Why is she being nice to the girl who insulted the CEO? Hey, you two, what are your names? She asked the receptionist, and they introduced themselves respectfully. You two are fired. You are the first faces of this company, and we can't have you treating clients abhorrently, she orders. The receptionists couldn't believe their ears. They started crying and begging right there in front of everyone. But Claudia asked them not to waste their time. Believe it or not, this is not a decision I made. You just messed with the wrong person, and I'm just following orders. She shrugged and turned to address the rest of the employees who were silently watching. Is lunch break so long that you now have time to loiter around laughing aimlessly? Should I have it reduced? Claudia asks sharply. The employees quickly respond, pleading and begging her not to shorten their lunch break. Fine, then get out of here now. You all need to be back at work on time, she orders, and the crowd disperses in a rush. Claudia then offers to accompany Ina. She goes up with Ina until they find Patrick. She then leaves them to continue. Ina is relieved and grateful for the unexpected kindness. She has no idea what she would have done had Claudia not arrived. She quickly tries to hand over the packed lunch to Patrick, but he immediately refuses, saying she herself has to go to Codra's office and give it to him personally.